Recently, I posted a list of the top 25 of 2025 most anticipated indie games, and I've been overwhelmed by the reception that the list has gotten. And needless to say, with only 25 spots, some games didn't make the cut, some games were forgot, and even since then, more indies have been revealed. So technically, with this list and the first list, this would be the top 50 most anticipated indie games of 2025. Since we already ranked the first list, we aren't going to rank this list 26 through 50 because after some discoveries and forgetfulness, a lot of these games would fit into the top 25. Instead, this time around, we're just going to be listing 25 more amazing indie titles. Nipping this in the bud, these games will range from all different types of indies, including teams with a handful of devs to AAA level studios, and some studios that might even have publishing deals with bigger companies, which doesn't make them any less independent. They were just fortunate enough to secure a publishing deal and alleviate some stress on their next release, so hats off to them. It's also possible that we still miss something and put in a small studio that might not be indie, but let's not get too caught in the weeds with the definition of what an independent game studio is. Instead, let's just try to have some fun and get excited for some mostly indies together. And in case you missed our first list, be sure to check it out. We will have a link in the description. We're also going to be linking it in the video, so be sure to check that out first or after this. Either way works. Blueprints is a first-person, puzzle-based roguelite where you play as an heir to a giant estate, and the only problem is that you need to find the elusive 46th room in a 45-room mansion. The problem is that you only have 4 days to accomplish this task, or you will forfeit your inheritance. Each day, you try to find the 46th room by beginning in the lobby of the mansion, and each door you go through can transform the blueprints of the next room into a handful of different preset rooms. You have a limited amount of steps that you can take throughout the day. You have a grid that limits your blueprint drawings. Some doors require keys, some rooms require gems, and some rooms require gold. If it sounds a little complex, as soon as you play it, things will click into place. In addition to the core mechanic, the mansion is littered with puzzles and mysteries for you to solve. At the end of the day, or when you run out of steps and find yourself at a dead end, you go to sleep, lose everything you have acquired, and the layout of the mansion goes back to a blank slate. What you retain is mostly your knowledge. The visuals won't be pushing your graphics card to the limit, but the art direction is stunning. On numerous occasions, I found myself just staring at the environment like the view of the mountains that greets you when you go out of the front door. Greenfield is a blend of inside, limbo, and control. At least that's how 6-Foot Giraffe referred to their game and its inspiration. Now, as someone who is and has been desperately looking for something to fill that playdead void, Greenfield looks like it might work. However, there have been other attempts at this formula like Somerville and Planet of Lana, both with different results, but nothing quite executes on the unease and the mystery of the playdead world combined with the frictionless controls. Greenfield is a story-driven puzzle platformer where you explore a forgotten island facility which could be real or symbolic, and you also explore different biomes using lost technology in search of answers, and each biome will be unique and centered around a specific energy: fire, water, wind, photonic, and magnetic. As nice as the trailer looks from about a year ago, 6-Foot Giraffe is only one person, and that is a monumental task. The point-and-click genre hasn't had a renaissance yet like many older genres have. Boomer shooters, 3D platformers, and even Metroidvanias continue to thrive. Although the Drifter might look like another generic point-and-click with its retro pixel aesthetic, it becomes clear within seconds that this is something different. The voice acting is superb and immediately captures your attention. However, within minutes of playing the game, you hear a fellow trained drifter mumble something along the lines of "not this again," before being gruesomely riddled with bullet holes. As you narrowly escape, it sinks in that you are caught in the middle of something much bigger than just trespassing. As a homeless drifter who has returned home after 5 years for a funeral, you now have to come to grasp that you are somehow caught in a time loop. The controls are effortless on Steam Deck. There aren't obtuse puzzles, and when you combine the voice acting and the pulp thriller plot, the Drifter could be the reinvigoration that the point-and-click genre needs. From the creators of Ape Out and Getting Over It comes a very unique game about an adult burnout who is transported to another world and needs to learn to walk again or to take his first baby steps. Crossing the difficult terrain in the trailer looks reminiscent of Death Stranding, but with a much less serious tone. The trailer also displays how hilarious this game is going to be thanks to the emergent gameplay, but also there appears to be some very dry and witty writing. Baby Steps is definitely going to take the walking simulator conversation to another level. There hasn't been any shortage of boomer shooters, but most of them are trying to be the same mindless shooter. Decay, in the words of the developer, is a love letter to immersive sims of the late 90s and early 2000s like Deus Ex and System Shock. The studio also lists games like Descent and Unreal as inspiration. Decay takes place in the Great Depression of 2089 and the Earth is about to become uninhabitable, but humanity isn't aware how dire the circumstances are. Your objective is to uncover the truth and save what's left of civilization in a mission that will take you across the globe to 5 continents from Seattle all the way to Siberia. Many have tried to create a Metroidvania with Souls-like elements in that order, but Mandragora is approaching this from the opposite angle, a 2.5D Souls-like with Metroidvania elements. The primary focus of Mandragora is on the demanding combat, strong atmosphere, and RPG elements. The world is explored at a much slower and more methodical pace, and the universe is much more oppressive than the usual genre standard. And immediately, you can see the difference from the character class screen, which is something very foreign to the Metroidvania genre. In the words of the developers, they were inspired by the exploration from the original Castlevania games, the combat from Dark Souls, the emotional storytelling from Witcher 3, and the visuals from Ori. Every single title from Daniel Mullen's games have been received extremely well with critical acclaim for Pony Island, The Hex, and Inscription floating around the 90th percentile. Even higher is the Steam reviews for all of these titles, which averages around the 95th percentile. Unfortunately, I missed Pony Island, but I have seen many playthroughs of it, and I did play Inscription. I am now ready for Daniel Mullen's next mind-bending game. The elevator pitch for Bionic Bay is that it's Limbo meets Portal in this physics-based puzzle platformer. The visuals have very stark contrast and the gameplay is addictive as you want to move from one obstacle to the next. In the demo, there was an experiment that went wrong and now your character has superpowers that allows him to jump higher, move faster, and teleport. The story also seems very interesting as a scientist who has been transported to an ancient biomechanical world, and not only are you trying to escape, but you're also trying to uncover the secrets of this universe in this unique sci-fi platformer. Most Metroidvanias released are now reductively called Hollow Knight ripoffs, which isn't fair to a lot of Metroidvanias and studios that are trying new things. The good news is that Echo Weaver is nothing like Hollow Knight and there is no confusion. Echo Weaver feels truly original due to its visuals and its time loop premise. The time loop is implemented in such a genius way as you have health, but you also have time before your loop runs out and you have to restart the cycle again with the information that you gained on your last time loop. You'll also encounter blocked off areas that are unlocked by sacrificing a certain amount of your time, which is a very unique way of implementing the time loop. As mentioned, the visuals feel unique and they don't feel like it's pulling inspiration from anywhere. It's hard for an art style to stand out and grab your attention immediately. Remember the first time that you saw Cuphead and how captivated you became with its unique art style that no one else was doing? By Sweet Carole is what you would get if you took classic Walt Disney animation, made it horror, and then combined those elements into a platformer. The game itself currently looks a little stiff, but the art style and the supernatural horror game with a narrative focus could be doing the heavy lifting here and could take a lot of the focus off of the controls. Sleight of Hand is a third-person stealth action deck builder. It's no secret that deck builders are having a moment, but as with anything, there is always room for one more if something is done right or innovates. Sleight of Hand is inspired by noir and tactical espionage action about a witch who must infiltrate her old coven using a cursed deck of cards. Sleight of Hand is set in the hard-boiled, rain-soaked city of Taboo, a world that is separated by those with magical powers and those without. Previous to founding Riff Raff Games in 2019 in New Zealand, Joshua Boggs also led Framed and Frame 2, award-winning puzzle games also with a noir aesthetic and very positive reviews. It's clear that the studio has a very deep love for noir adventures. Riff Raff Games is currently about a dozen people, but they are definitely garnering more attention thanks to being featured on the Xbox Partner Showcase. After a less than great reception of 2023's The Lamplighters League and disappointing sales, Paradox Interactive announced that there would be layoffs at Harebrained Schemes, which they had just acquired a few years back in 2018 for $7.5 million. In 2024, Harebrained and Paradox came to an agreement that they could regain their independence, but their IP in the form of their back catalog would remain at Paradox. Their first game since they have regained independence is Graft, an isometric survival horror cyberpunk RPG. From your fallen enemies, you are able to graft parts of them onto you and transform into a better version of yourself. However, these grafts come with consequences from the previous owner that you have to live with. Graft looks very similar visually to what the studio did before with the Shadowrun trilogy, but with a much darker tone. The studio was able to find success before with the formula, and Graft looks like a spiritual successor, which does bode well for critical success as well. Some games on this list might not make 2025, but some games on this list don't even have a real title yet. Project C is the collaboration between Half Mermaid Games and the newly minted Blumhouse Games. Half Mermaid Games is the studio founded by Sam Barlow, who is behind games like Her Story, Telling Lies, and the most recent critical smash, Immortality. There isn't much to go by except the current Steam tags that list FMV, horror, dark, and sci-fi. There is also a lot of redacted text in the description, but it does say for the first time ever in a video game. Sam Barlow's first 3 games are more dramatic, and the change to horror sci-fi in FMV sounds like an absolute blast. Trying to piece together what little bits of story there are, there appears to be someone who can see events or timelines in a kaleidoscopic nature, which fits right in with the mechanics of his previous games. Although Koira might be published by Don't Nod, it is being developed by Studio Tolima, a handful of people from Belgium. Their main goal is to tell emotional stories through minimalistic approach, and Koira seems to be doing just that as you befriend a puppy and help guide it out of the forest to safety. With its minimalist art style, Koira uses the art direction and scope to convey all of the emotion while you explore the forest, figuring out puzzles and stealth sections to progress. The adventure sees you traverse through shaded groves, slide down snowy hills, withstand blizzards, and find your way through dark caverns. Watching the trailer, it is clear that Koira is going to be a very emotionally heavy game. Demon Spore is a top-down, twin-stick shooter with roguelike elements that is inspired by 80s action horror. You play as a scientist who is trying to cure world hunger by creating a faster-growing livestock, which sounds awfully similar to some of the advancements that are trying to be made today. Demon Spore is developed by Dino Boss, who is a solo developer who has a deep love for action and horror flicks. In addition to John Carpenter's The Thing being the main source of inspiration, Dino Boss also lists other 80s sci-fi action horror titles like Predator and Alien. The elevator pitch is quite simple: get to the elevator, and as you can gather from the title, a demon spore has broken out of the lab and you need to escape. You will need to find the correct path out of the 49 available rooms to reach the elevator, and along the way you will be looking for crucial equipment like weapons and key cards to help your survival. Demon Spore has had a few demo flights, and the feedback that has been given is that a lot of people felt like it reminded them of a board game in a good way. People also enjoyed that the game was more than just shooting, as it involves puzzles to solve, paths to choose, and stealth mechanics. Nothing quite hits the same turn-based tactics sweet spot quite like XCOM with its blend of strategy and sci-fi. Menace looks to fill that void, and PC Games N said if you're craving XCOM 3, Menace might be what you're looking for. Now, with features like permadeath, alien races, and character backstories, it's easy to connect the two. Menace is being developed by Overhyped Studios, the team behind the cult hit Battle Brothers, the medieval, lo-fi, turn-based tactics game. In Menace, you play as a strike force against alien race across multiple planets, and you need to push back and protect humanity with infantry, mechs, and tanks, with the main inspiration, according to the developer, being Warhammer 40k tabletop with a massive amount of variables from deployment zones, map size, map type, and objectives. The easiest way to describe The Lost Wild is that it looks like Alien Isolation meets Jurassic Park. Even the description of the game sounds like Alien Isolation, as you are caught in the middle of the food chain. Keep your head down, evade, and if all else fails, try to intimidate using non-lethal weaponry, resulting in an intense game of cat and mouse. The Lost Wild is not to be confused with Jurassic Park Survival that was announced afterwards from Saber Interactive. Although the status of Annapurna Interactive and any game that they were publishing might be up in the air a little bit, the fact that the people who were at Annapurna saw something in this game speaks volumes about it. The glimmer of hope here is that it appears as though Annapurna have also already began filling the vacancies. Shroom and Gloom is a first-person, roguelike deck-building dungeon crawler. What makes Shroom and Gloom captivating is a combination of the art style that feels reminiscent of Inscription and the unique first-person perspective. Shroom and Gloom was initially created at a game jam in 2021, and the prototype is still available on itch.io, with the small team hoping that they can get enough interest and funding to make Shroom and Gloom into a full experience. It's hard to find information, but the team have said that they are currently working on the Steam page, which means that the early access version should be the next step on the list. As a huge fan of deck builders, roguelites, and dungeon crawlers, Shroom and Gloom is a game that we will be keeping a close eye on. There is a small chance that it hits early access near the end of 2025. Retrieval feels like the biggest wildcard on this list for numerous reasons. First, it very likely will not release in 2025. Second, this is a brand new studio consisting of just a handful of people from Barcelona who are completely unknown. And finally, it's very unclear if we've actually seen any gameplay at all. Retrieval is a cinematic horror adventure, and what it really has going for it outside of being absolutely stunning is that it won the award from PlayStation Talents for Game of the Year. One of the glimmers of hope that it might release in 2025 is that 333 Studios have posted about Retrieval being PS5 Pro enhanced, and with the PS5 Pro just releasing, it would seem that if it didn't have much of a chance of releasing, they wouldn't have even mentioned it. I would put Mixtape on this list just for the soundtrack alone, with songs from bands like Smashing Pumpkins, Joy Division, and Iggy Pop. It's easy to imagine the rest of the soundtrack is going to be just as incredible. Outside of the soundtrack, Mixtape looks like it has stunning art direction and is being developed by Beethoven and Dinosaur, the BAFTA award-winning studio behind 2021's The Artful Escape. Taking place against the backdrop of this incredible music and visuals is the last night of high school together with your friends. Being able to experience these moments with a fantastical spin and knowing that they are the last moments together sounds magical. The gameplay also sounds like a mixtape of different genres, including skateboarding, hitting baseballs, setting off fireworks, exploring an abandoned theme park, and flying. There is something about We Kill Monsters that is so damn intriguing. The world feels open, full of mystery, and begs to be explored. We Kill Monsters is the sophomore game from Glass Revolver, a small 5-person team led by Jacob Williams. In 2018, development began with We Kill Monsters as a 2D Monster Hunter style game, but decided that everything that he was creating would be better off in 3D as it would make the world more realized. Despite all of his close friends and family telling him to stick with development, Jacob transitioned the project into 3D and is now creating it using Unreal Engine 5. Jacob also didn't give himself any possibility to go back on his decision, because after deciding to create We Kill Monsters in 3D, he completely deleted everything that he'd already developed so he wouldn't be tempted to take the easier path. This commitment to a vision is extremely refreshing and is one of the reasons that we are excited for We Kill Monsters, in addition to what footage was shown in June 2023 at the Annapurna Interactive Showcase. We Kill Monsters will be fully available in solo or co-op. As for the gameplay, it looks like it'll be reminiscent of many games including Shadow of the Colossus, Eco, Monster Hunter, Elden Ring, and even Death Stranding, but it still somehow looks completely unique. Threads of Time is a turn-based JRPG with a gorgeous pixel aesthetic, but what really grabs your attention is the time-traveling setting that ranges from 12 million BC, where dinosaurs rule the Earth, to a cyberpunk 2400 all the way up to the apocalypse. Threads of Time is being created in Unreal Engine 5 and looks incredible. There is one slight issue, and that's Threads of Time was supposed to be published by Humble Games, who was recently shut down just a few months ago. The good news is that they said that their upcoming releases will not be affected, which sounds good, but only time will tell. Now, it likely won't get the same attention and marketing budget, so hopefully Threads of Time will be able to garner enough attention and be able to find success. Hela is a 1-to-4 player co-op game about exploration and adventure in a beautiful Scandinavian environment where you play as a mischievous mouse. The game is being developed by Wind Up Games, and when I first saw the reveal a few months back, it looked fun, but it wasn't until I realized who the team behind it was that my interest spiked. Wind Up Games only began in 2022, and prior to this, it was the same people who developed the Unravel series. It's hard to find information as to what happened with Coldwood Interactive, but it likely had to do with their previous games, which were published at EA. Once you learn about the team, it's hard not to see the evolution of Unravel when you see Hela. There is the art style in which you can clearly see Unravel, but now in a fully 3D perspective. You have a grappling hook that comes out of your magical backpack similar to the yarn in Unravel, and now there will be up to 4-player co-op, which is up from 2 players in Unravel. Hela is clearly an evolution of what the studio is good at, and with both games having reviews around 80, there is good hope that the studio will continue to evolve not only in the concept, but mechanics, gameplay, and refinement as well. Imagine if you can Portal, but as a top-down puzzler, and you would have Lab Rat. Lab Rat is being developed by Chum Squad, a studio founded in 2018 by Gwen Frey, who had previously worked on Marvel movies and at Irrational Games on BioShock Infinite. Chum Squad's first game was Kine, and it was self-published. It sounds like it was also mostly developed solo, and it also reviewed extremely well with outlets like Edge Magazine and Eurogamer. The studio's follow-up is Lab Rat, a game about a metrics-obsessed AI that monitors your every move in the maze. The world seems highly inspired by Aperture Science Labs and its dark satirical humor that was a staple of the Portal series. Lab Rat features over 130 puzzles that consist of figuring out movable objects, diverting lasers, and manipulating electricity in hilarious ways, and by the end, it looks as though the game will likely try to break the fourth wall. This time around, Chum Squad has bulked up, and there are now 4 developers working on the project, with the art being created by the lead world builder from BioShock Infinite, Mike Snight. I couldn't decide on the final spot, and after deliberating for a few days, this just meant this piece was staying in limbo, so here are a few extra picks. Dark Swarm from Bitfire Games reminds me of the PS3 era, specifically Helldivers 1 and the Housemarque titles like Dead Nation, which in my books is a very good thing. Dark Swarm is a 1-to-4 player top-down tactical shooter with extraction elements. The world is procedural and features destructible environments. There is more than Dark Swarm than just shooting, as it also features stealth, hacking, and tactical gameplay mechanics with progression and class-based operators. After playing the Silent Hill 2 remake from Bloober Team, I remembered just how good that world can be, and it made me more excited for all of the other Silent Hill projects that Konami announced a few years ago. After Bloober Team transcended what a remake can be with Silent Hill 2, I am even more excited now for Silent Hill Townfall from No Code, the studio behind the atmospheric space title Observation. Despite the Annapurna situation, Townfall still appears to be moving right along. Before leaving, consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video. The bigger the audience, the more access I will be given and the more I will be able to share with you. Our founding principle is positivity. The world needs more positivity, and I hope to see you in the next video. That's everything for today, but until next time, be good to your fellow gamer, but be better to your fellow human.